Welcome back to Central News. A creative university conference being hosted by the University of Waikato last week looked at the role universities in new economic development models. Faculty of Education Professor Michael Peters and Global Studies in Education Professor Tina Besley tell Central News more about the role universities play in the new economic development models.
I think it's a very new concept that universities need to contribute to the national economy. And this conference was about the concept of the creative economy and the way in which universities can contribute to the knowledge economy through the creative sector. Because, the creative sector is growing nationally and internationally at around 14%. And that's even within a recession. So here is a very strong sector of the economy, including the kind of work that you guys are doing here in television, media more generally, book publishing, academic publishing throughout the world. That's an $85 billion a year market within the world. So it's really beginning to reconceptualise the way in which the university can contribute to that mission of the creative economy. So, and New Zealand has a kind of reputation for having big contributions like the creative arts and the area of creative arts and performing arts. So this is what that conference was about. It was really beginning to harness a lot of talent within New Zealand to discuss what the contribution of the university is to the creative economy. And we had, lots of people from overseas. It was a very cosmopolitan conference. We had many people from overseas that were ready to discuss that question.
Can you tell us about the approach that you've taken?
Well, the approach is a philosophical approach. It's first of all, what is the concept of the creative economy? Secondly, when we're talking about creative economy, how does it relate different aspects of the economy? So when we're talking about, for instance, the dairying industry in New Zealand, there is a creative aspect to that in terms of diversification of products, new products, advertising, marketing, public relations. And so we're not just talking about the arts generally or the performing arts or the creative arts generally. We're talking about much wider participation. So we say the concept of the creative economy as opposed to the industrial economy. What is the role of the universities in relation to this? And we're talking here about 8 universities in New Zealand. Each of them are well over $1 billion entity. So their effects can be huge.
Now, Tina, the conference was held last week. What was the aim of it?
The aim of the conference was to bring together academics largely from around the world to discuss these ideas that Mark was just referred to, and a much broader, wider conceptualisation of creativity than just the very narrow one relating to how it so often does, just the primarily performing arts and so on. So that was the aim, and I think we succeeded pretty well. We had visitors from the USA, from Taiwan, from Germany, from Australia, and of course from New Zealand, from other universities and locations in New Zealand. And they were not all from just the university sector. That was the other thing we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that we had as broad a representation as possible for the 2 days that we held this conference here.
Tina, what is the relationship between contemporary higher education and the changing face of contemporary economies?
That's an interesting question because it varies considerably in different parts of the world as the economies in various locations in the Western world particularly come under huge pressure, funding pressure in particular.
Can I contribute something on that maybe? Because, we're talking here about a new raft of technologies, in particular Web 2.0 technologies, now the so-called internet economy now, which acts as a platform for a lot of enterprises. And now we're talking about forms of national innovation that get some kind of purchase on global markets through new social media and through using the internet as a platform. So, I mean, one of the questions we're looking at is, first of all, what are the various concepts of creativity that are driving national policies to do with creativity in schools and universities, but also within the creative sector per se. And there are many different concepts here that really differ quite considerably from traditional notions, romantic notions of creativity.
And what came from the conference last week?
Well, we have a lot of course, like all conferences, we have an exchange of ideas. We have a number of publications coming out of it, a series of books with a New York publisher called Creative Universities. And we have a lot of contributors who are keen to be part of a series of journals and journal issues which are devoted to this theme. So, we had over 55 papers presented at this conference, which is quite a lot for a small conference, and most of those people were from overseas. So what we're trying to do is kickstart a debate here around creativity as a driving logic for national economic development. And I can see, with the government reorganisation of science and enterprise, for instance, under Stephen Joyce, for instance, that the national government at the moment needs to be aware of these kinds of developments. These are central policy developments for advanced knowledge economies like New Zealand.
To find out more, head to tcreativeu.blogspot.co.nz. After the break, we hear from Tina in relation to the Global Studies in Education Department, which she is in charge of, a first for a woman to lead.